Just so I'm on this end today. So anyway, most know I'm Jenny Glessman. I'm with the Sage Hill Community Futures Office. We're excited to be here in Lorraine's space today. Thank you for having us. This is wonderful. I'm just going to start with a land acknowledgement. As we gather here today, we acknowledge we are on Treaty 6 territory and the homeland of the Métis. We pay our respects to the First Nation and Métis ancestors of this place, and we reaffirm our relationship with one another. So we thought it was perfect today to talk about side hustle going to success because it's Small Business Week. And on the table, there's cookies, help yourself. They're made from Twin Treats here in Humboldt, so a small business in the area. We always do something special for Small Business Week, so we thought this would be great. We're excited to have Jessica here with us. Jessica's originally from Calgary, made Saskatchewan her home 17 years ago, and for the last decade has been in Rorison. She's not only a proud Métis woman, has a disability, has started her own business and has started her second own business, is a mom to 6 daughters and 2 granddaughters, right?
Yes.
A blended family. And her and her husband have just become partners in the business. So she started it as your own business as yourself, but now has made that giant leap to working with your partner, with your husband. And it's called the Wiener Wagon. So we're going to learn all about Jessica's start, how she got started, and all the things she's used many of Sage Hill's services, and many of, been through a lot of the other programs out there. So we're going to turn it over to you, Jessica, to tell us about your journey and inspire us.
Sounds great. So it's so funny. I ended up, like Jenny mentioned, I'm from Calgary, and I wasn't really that familiar with Saskatchewan until I moved here 17 years ago. And I honestly probably know Saskatchewan better than Alberta now because I've traveled all around because of work. When I first moved, I was employed with the Gabriel Dumont Institute, and I worked with them for about 10 years. And it was funny when I had that interview for the job, the man who interviewed me was like, "So you're Métis?" And I was like, yeah. But I never had any proof of that. I just knew that I likely was. And I always felt like I was an imposter, like a fake Indigenous person. And then when I finally got the documents filled out and got my Métis card, it was like such a big sigh of relief. It was so affirming, and it was just such a nice feeling to actually have proof. So I didn't feel like I was lying to anyone anymore. And that was really only maybe 4 years ago that I got that proof. And then I started working with them and had some kids and ended up getting a job with Community Futures Saskatchewan, and was helping manage a program with entrepreneurs with disabilities for Saskatchewan. And that's when I met Jenny and Susan Wehuggy out of Bruno. And I remember going to their office, never being to Bruno in my life. And the program was brand new and it didn't really have a lot of legs yet. And I felt like a vacuum cleaner salesperson showing up at somebody's door because I really didn't know what I was talking about. And I had to sell this program to this office who knew more about everything than I did. I was coming from a place of like community-based programming and education, and now I'm in this small business sphere that I know nothing about, and stumbling over my words, and ended up working with Sage Hill for 3 years. And we did so well together in this program that we got to know each other really well. But it was a 3-year government contract that ended. So then I found myself without a job. And it was just a really interesting time in my life because it went from living in a rural community, which is fine, having a really great job, and then all of a sudden I'm unemployed and I can't find a job in Rorison. Like I can't find anything that actually is willing to pay me not 15 or less dollars an hour. And I was like, this is wild. Like how do people survive out here? Because I didn't have a healthcare background, I wasn't a teacher. I was like, okay, this is not great. And then I ended up going through a divorce, and it was just like, okay, I'm unemployed and I'm going through a divorce, and I have 3 kids, Ended up living in my mom's unfinished basement, and we made it like summer camp with hanging curtains and all this stuff in her basement until I could find adequate housing. And so I was on unemployment insurance and got a part-time job also working at the local food bank, digging up potatoes. And it was less than ideal. And it was, but you know, in hindsight, you know, it's very interesting because when you're going through something stressful and you're forced to do physical labor, you know, it gets you out of your head, which can be really helpful. And that's what I needed. So that worked out well for me. But then I also ended up cleaning houses. So then I ended up cleaning probably 6 to 7 houses a day. I would have my kids every other week. So the weeks I didn't have them, that's what I was doing. And it was very physical, as you can imagine. So that was like, just like these little side hustles that I was just like, yeah, I'll come and clean your house. Sure, I'll pay. Yeah, I'll charge you $15 an hour, which is ridiculous. But I was just like, if I had my price real low, then I'd get more people and then I would end up making more money. That was my thought process behind it. Which wasn't smart. I should have been charging more and had less clients, but you know, hindsight. But then one day Susan from Sage Hill phoned me and was like, hey, Jess, what are you up to? And I was like, didn't want to tell her, well, I'm actually drowning. But and I remember she was driving and she was on speakerphone. Hey, I thought about you. I'm going to do these webinars. Do you think you could help facilitate, just like arrange it for us, like all the Zoom stuff, because we don't know how. I'm like, yep, I can do that. And all that was very new to me, like Zoom, obviously to most people was very new. So was social media. It just wasn't quite as big as it is now. She's like, great, I'm gonna pay you this much money a month. Can you manage this for these 2 programs? I was like, yeah. And I just remember getting off the phone and going, oh my God, I don't have to clean anybody's house anymore. Emotional. Anyways, it was like very powerful for me. It was such a gift. So I moved into my new rental house. It was lovely. And Jenny and I facilitated piles of webinars together over the last 4 years for Sage Hill and for the Indigenous Business Development Services Program. That's where a lot of our training. So my role is to find the facilitators and then Jenny and coordinate kind of the marketing end of it. And so, but when Susan introduced this opportunity for me, she's like, this is a business, like you have to create a business to doing this. I was like, okay, sure, you know. So that's what I did. And it's just grown. It's grown into other community futures hearing about what I'm doing and then hiring me also to do similar work, and then managing social media for them. And then it's turned into just some like programming. Some different organizations reach out and just wonder if I'll work one-on-one with some of their clients to offer programs. I have a background in, like I said, I worked within the Métis community, managing a lot of community-based programming. So familiar with, you know, going back to school as an adult learner, as well as the small business component. I have an educational background in criminology, so I'm well versed in like addictions and community-based programs, but in kind of the legal system. So I have a lot of different experience working with very diverse people. And I feel that I'm very attuned to kind of be able to read a room and, you know, be able to relate to people at all levels of wherever they're at. And so I think that that's a gift that I have, is that I can be in any space and either bring it down or elevate myself depending on who's in the room and be able to work with them. And I think that I've been successful, I think, just because of that kind of realness that I have that people can relate to. And then, you know, life kind of kept going. I ended up getting married to our local street sweeper, because why not? And
Keep it local.
yeah, exactly. I was shopping local. And he also had 3 daughters, so we blended families, and it's been that in itself is a whole other discussion about blending families, but not for today. And you know, because we have all these teenagers and everybody's a woman, so we have 5 women who live with us. My 3 go back and forth. His 2 are permanent with us, and the older one has children of her own and lives in PA. But I was finding it really hard to kind of, as we all know, like working with youth and kids, and they hide out in their room and they're always on their phones. And we need to do something with these kids. Like, we need to get them out of the house, and we need to connect with them, because it's really hard to connect with youth and teens, and especially if they're not yours, or if they are yours and you're all in the same house. So this past year, we started a business called the Wiener Wagon. It's literally a mobile hot dog cart. And so we started August 1st, and we have our kids, the older ones, working with us. And it's been amazing. So we've just, you know, just sitting in the park with our lawn chairs, with our teenager who's working that shift, we're able to just kind of connect with them. We're able to, you know, just connect, even if we're not busy or we are busy. And just the teaching and the confidence building, all of these things that we're able to kind of fuel into these young girls. It's really fun, and they love making the money, and we give all the tips to them, and we pay them even though we're not paying ourselves, but that's okay. They've worked hard. Like, we can't actually believe how well they've kind of like stepped up, and they're excited. At first they were a little embarrassed about doing it, but now they're proud of it, because people are like, know about it, know about them, and they think it's fun. They all, well, myself, I have ADHD very badly, and all of our kids do as well. So it's very interesting when you're navigating my own, and then also helping navigate and teach these children, because I can see that self-employment is going to be part of their reality for a lot of them. And so being able to teach them young is going to be really important for them. I wasn't taught any of these things when I was young. I came from a background where, you know, my dad was a cop, and he, with the city of Calgary, and his mindset was like, no, you got to get a job with the pension and the benefits, and you stay there until you retire. So, you know, for me, I was always here and there and everywhere. And it made him crazy. Like, Jess, when you can settle down and just like get a real job? I don't know. I don't think I ever can. And at that point, I wasn't diagnosed with having ADHD until about 7 years ago, and I'm 47. So, you know, I spent 40 years navigating this, and people likely thinking I was pretty cuckoo. But I just had a way of just living life, but always looking for opportunities, always looking for adventure. I didn't shy away from all that. But now I just see the importance of kind of giving my kids different tools and teaching them about self-employment, so it's not like a shock to their system about, I don't fit into the workplace. You know? I remember when I first worked with Community Futures Saskatchewan, and my role was to have a caseload. I don't do well with caseload, and I don't do well with filing. And I remember I struggled. And I really struggled with like, okay, so these are your clients and you have to build these client files and all these things need to be in this file. And I was like, I would have fired me. I could barely hold on to get those parts done. But I was really good at other parts of it. I was really good at like connecting the dots for these people. Like, what do you need? You need that. Oh yeah, you need that. I know where to get it, or I'll find out where to get it. And I could put all the puzzle pieces together, but I couldn't handle the day-to-day like filing. And then now looking back, like, oh, I've struggled with that my whole life. And that's why things were harder for me. And that's why jobs were harder for me. And I don't know if any of you guys can relate to that, but I mean, it's what time did I get here? I feel way better. Thank you for being so open. Oh, thank you. Oh yeah, you're welcome. But I mean, like even this morning I was listening to this podcast. It's a ADHD women business owner podcast, and they were talking about how you know, having ADHD is really powerful, and a lot of small business owners do have ADHD, and it's just that is one of the gifts. But there's a lot of unknown too with that, and you know, there's a lot of stuff. You know, people usually say, "Oh, it's these people who are all over the place. You know, they're disorganized and they're all these things." That's true, but when your head doesn't turn off, it's a bit overwhelming and a bit of a problem. And people don't realize the head game that you have as a person living with ADHD. And I honestly can say that there's many times in the day where I have to just go and lay down and just like close my eyes so that I can go back and sit at my computer, because it's dizzying, right? When you have all these things happening to people. I've been really fortunate that through, you know, my relationship with Sage Hill, I've been able to access a lot of different programming. So I did participate in the self-employment program because I was on EI, and I transferred over to the self-employment program. I also accessed funding through the Entrepreneurs with Disabilities program. So they paid me $750, and I was able to actually work with an ADHD coach who helped me basically how to put everything in my Google Calendar, which has been life-changing for me. I don't know how I did it before, honestly. I really don't. And I also have been fortunate enough to utilize funding through the Pathways to Entrepreneurship program through the Gabriel Dumont Institute at being a Métis person. So it wasn't dollars that they gave me, it was resources. For example, I was able to hire a bookkeeper, and we paid her so that everything was done for me. I was able to hire a content writer for my website and get some nice photos done. And there were so many key elements. It was unbelievable. I mean, probably close to $30,000 that they invested in me to be able to move my business. I mean, the truth is that I probably didn't need a lot of those things because I don't really need a face out there with my business, but it's fun, right, to have that. But the work I do is so behind the scenes. I also utilize the Community Futures program, Go Digital. That is no longer, they've reached their max, but they built my website for me, which was great. It was $100 for a new website. And what else? Oh, we did borrow money. I borrowed money actually from Sage Hill through their Women's Initiative Fund that's brand new for the Wiener Wagon. So if you know of anybody who is a female and looking for funding, that initiative is a really great option. And in my experience, I haven't gone to a traditional bank before for lending for a business, just because I knew what I was looking for, and I knew that a traditional bank would likely not want to help pay for things like inventory, but Community Futures does. So I knew that I could utilize those funds to help pay for the inventory as well as the equipment that we had for the Wagon. So in essence, like I wouldn't be here without Sage Hill. Like, it's not even a question. The relationships that I built with Susan, for her to then think about me later on, I mean, it transformed my career. So I just, for anyone, you know, if maybe you have some relationships and you're young and you're like, I don't really like that person, or whatever it is, I would just encourage people to always end things on a good note with your employers and your clients, because you never know when your paths are going to cross again, and they always will, especially in small towns, you know. And it's really nice if you can try to work those things out if you do have a poor relationship, because it will be worth it down the road. I think, you know, a funny story, I've always kind of been that person who side hustle wasn't a word back in the day. But you know, at 18, I was like, I'm gonna create this business and I'm gonna go into all the fancy houses and I'm gonna organize for them. I can't organize anything, but that's what I'm gonna do. I am going to organize other people's houses, and I'm gonna target the really big wealthy families because they're so busy they can't do anything. So I made these little brochures on my parents' printer, and my dad, I remember saying, make sure your picture's on there because you're cute and people will want to hire you. They know that you're not gonna come in and steal from them, right? Like, it's all back in the day. So I did, and I went door to door and I put these little flyers in mailboxes. And the first person who called me was Brett Wilson. And he was like, hey, so I'm
Sorry, Brett Wilson's story.
You got fire? Yeah. Okay. So he's like, so I saw your little flyer in my mailbox and need help organizing my closet. And I was like, okay, great. So I drive, like, I had this really old car. It's a 1969 Buick Skylark. And did you? I parked it a few blocks away from his house because I was pretty embarrassed of my car showing up at his house. Had like these giant white pillars. Like, it was the biggest one in Mount Royal, if you're familiar with that area of Calgary. Anyways, literally was in his home, in his bedroom, and he was pulling things out of his closet, and I was stuffing them all into garbage bags. And then I hauled them all down 2 blocks to my car. And he's like, go and donate the things. I was like, okay. And then I drove around the corner and I found this men's consignment store, and I went and brought all his beautiful clothes to the men's consignment store and consigned them all and made more money on top of that. And then, I know it's terrible. I was young.
Yeah.
And some of them had like hand embroidery inside with his name. And I was like, I'm gonna get caught. I was nervous about it after. And then had the rest sitting in the back of the trunk of my car. And just, I remember opening the trunk at like a bush party, and all these guy friends of mine just helping themselves to golf shirts and all things that were just in the back. So funny. But I always, you know, I was hired to do, to just go into and help people with like parties, Christmas parties. I was like a hostess helper, and just did things like that for years and years and years, and always just kind of whatever needed to be done, I would do it, and just go in, do it, make money. It fueled a lot of trips. I went and I taught English in Taiwan, and then I also worked at the Canadian Embassy in Beijing for a year. So all these little stints paid for my airfare and paid for all my pocket money and all these things. So so it's been a lot. Like, there's been a lot that's happened, a lot of fun things. And honestly, I think that if I had like a neurotypical brain, my life never would have been so rich and so diverse. And I don't see it as a downside. Sometimes I do, and I'm a little bit overwhelmed, but now I know how to kind of cope with things. But I don't think I would have as many life experience as well as the relationships that I have. I don't think that I would be able to relate to so many different people if I haven't lived the life that I have. Another thing, because, why not start a third thing? I have a lot of teenagers in my life, and it just seems to me like the norm for teenagers these days is self-harming. And it's become a real problem around me that I can see, and just mental health in youth has become very problematic. So we've created a social enterprise. It's called Love Your Canvas, where we are reselling temporary waterproof tattoos to cover up any kind of self-harm, scarring, or any other scars, birthmarks, stretch marks, any part of somebody's body that they just are not feeling comfortable with. That's what this is. This is a trial run. It was a beautiful white henna tattoo. It's lasted 7 days. So we're just kind of trying out some different products right now. And so I have another one. It's a butterfly, and it's actually been on for about 7 days. It's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now I have my teenage daughters who all have struggled with mental health. They're all involved, and we're reaching out to their friends, and we're making these little packages to sell with, like with our mission and with some different life stories from people. And we're going to be slowly collecting other people's stories when they're willing to share it. And then we'll sell these little packages of tattoos, and then putting the money back into the business to keep buying and sourcing product. Our goal is to be able to like maybe host some different nights where people can come in and create some art for us that we can then turn into tattoos as well, and some different youth initiatives in the future with some programming. My one daughter who's working with me on this, she's 13. She's being homeschooled this year. Mental health has been a challenge for her, actually her whole life, even though she's only 13. And so it's really fun. So not only are we able to work on this project together, which is really quite powerful. It's a little bit dark because of, but it is very powerful. The mission is good. It's strong. But she is so excited, and she's doing things, she's working, and she's motivated. She's going to be one of my kids who is self-employed, and so she's learning so much right now. And it's really fun to see how this is going to be a transformative time for her, and it's going to be a transformative time for her peers as she shares and as they get involved. And so it's just been a really exciting time for me and for my family. Had self-employment not been an avenue, none of this would be happening, right? And I would have been in a job, a 9-to-5 working for somebody else that just really didn't fit for me. And I know that it just really doesn't fit for so many people. And even though it's scary to think, oh, I can't start a business, like, you can. And not only that, you will be happier, and you will give more, you will work harder. Your earnings will be probably more than if you worked for somebody else, because if you're into it, if you're actually in tune with your values and with what really fits for you, you just love doing it, and it just keeps fueling it. I mean, I'm sure that a lot of you who have businesses you can relate to that, right? You're so passionate that you don't even care if how many hours you're working, because you just love it. It's just part of your life. It's like you're breathing in and out, and it's just who you are and what you want to be doing. And yeah, so I'm really thankful that that's kind of how this has gone for me. Like in terms of what you're all doing, can you relate? Do you have side hustles? I've already asked. Yeah.
Well, just even from my work at HTCS, this all resonates with me, especially. I love how you said you are diverse and you relate to your diverse experiences, where we often just think of it as it's a different, but it's been on a label. The majority of my clients that I work with are neurodiverse. And I just finished a group this summer of young people, we call it making moves. And so it's really interesting because, you know, they're detached from and disengaged from school.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to get them to the finish line of grade 12 and going back into school. And most of them went back this year, some of them didn't. A small group. So, I mean, we work really differently. So they really lead the group. So our learning style is completely opposite. Because I really do believe in breaking the systems, because they haven't changed for people. And most people have something, you know, and we want people to be able to disclose that and share it, and then we can work together. But as for I love your canvas, it's beautiful. I was just trying not to cry because I feel like it's, I wouldn't necessarily call it dark. I think it's necessary.
It's very necessary.
It's very necessary. I think we have to talk about it, and youth talking about it is just such a connector for other youth, and in such a beautiful way, because you don't have to, it takes the shame away, you know, by, you know, making a choice of how you're going to cover that being a message to move forward. So I think that we do need to look more at having your own side hustle and also customizing jobs to fit the strengths of people. It's so blanketed right now, and it's not strength based for any sort of role that you have, because you know I'm people before paper. You know, it's just you know, when I have to do notes, it's like I have to really psych myself up to do that. So I get that, and I think this is and it's like I just love listening to you speak. You're lovely.
Oh, thank you.
It's a storyteller, of course. So it's beautiful. So thank you.
Oh yeah. Awesome. What are you doing?
I work here.
Yeah.
So I manage the building and do lots of community applications for the nonprofit for Veterans Association as well. So.
But almost very entrepreneurially, because of the trust we have in free reign.
I would say I definitely have a very flexible position.
So nice.
I have a toddler at home. He doesn't have full-time daycare. So I work from home during nap time quite often, and I come in on daycare days, and it's very flexible, and I work when I can. And
isn't it amazing? Like, I honestly remember being pregnant with my third daughter, and I worked full time, and going and picking up my other two kids from daycare, and then being so tired, right? And going through the drive-through of Kentucky Fried Chicken in Saskatoon, pregnant, and going, is this my life? Like, seriously, is this my life? Like, I'm paying $1,400 a month for daycare. I don't even want to be at my job, because most of the time there wasn't enough work to do, because I'm fast, right? So when you're efficient, then there's so many lulls and people like, come to the coffee room, let's have coffee. Like, I want to go and pick up my kids and go home, but I can't because I'm bound to your clock, right? So for you to have that,
the flexibility
is amazing.
Yes. Yeah, I couldn't work. Like, there was no daycare to be had.
Yeah.
I didn't realize you had to apply when you got pregnant.
Oh, gosh.
Literally before you tell your husband you need to So I applied when he was 6 months old, and I was on an 18-month mat leave, and I applied when he was 6 months old, and we will not have full-time care till next summer.
That's crazy.
So without having the flexibility of working the hours when I can, I couldn't have a job.
Yeah. And you know, that's the thing. And like, even with Métis Roots Outsourcing, so it's the organization that I have, through that, my mission and goal and hopes for my business are to be able to have other women specifically, for different reasons, find also other contracts that I can hand off to them to do. Women who are in similar boats where they need to be at home because of childcare, because of transportation, and let's be honest, because they don't want to sit in an office for someone else all day. They still want to be able to do their laundry, get dinner ready, go and pick up kids if something happens, or just live life. Like, life is short, but we all need to work, right? So far I have been able to secure a few other side contracts for women in Rorison that I know, or I like try to fuel things like, hey, do you want to help me with this? Let's put in a bid together, maybe we'll get it. And just share some of these connections and things, because I really feel that because living in rural communities, there isn't, you want to pump gas? Not really. You want to work at the grocery store? Not really. I mean, I want to use my brain, but there's not a whole lot out there for you. So you have to be quite creative in terms of like what you're doing and what you're finding and who you're connecting with. And so that's my mission for my business. And so far it's going well. But at this point, I'm still holding on to most of it and doing the work myself. So, because I like to, but yeah. And what about you?
I'm the reporter at the radio station.
But also, but do you have a side hustle on your own?
No, I don't.
That's fine.
No, but when you were talking about the jobless, when you were jobless there for a bit, that kind of resonated with me because I was in that situation earlier this year.
Oh, yeah.
What you were kind of saying there definitely
Yeah.
rang true. So.
Yeah, for sure. That can be really tough being unemployed. What about you, Jenny?
I have many side
I
hustles.
know.
My husband and I own Bruno Lumber. So I work at Sage Hill as my comm. And I work there in the morning. My day is I go to Bruno Lumber and I'm the bookkeeper. I do all the books. I do the payroll. I pay all the bills. So I go in the morning and work for an hour. I go to Sage Hill for my 7 hours. Then I go back to Bruno Lumber and do books and make decisions with my business partner. Anybody ever told me I was going to own a lumber yard? Because I knew nothing about it. But now from there, we've added a greenhouse. Yeah. And now my husband has to sell petunias in the spring because I get it going and I go to Sage Hill. And then we just recently, we owned the building next door with a gym in it. And the community ran the gym, but the volunteers got tired and the building got ran down. So we took it back over and we spent a bunch of money and we remodeled it and we opened a fitness center. So now we have Bruno Lumber, we have Jenny's Greenhouse, and we have BLS Fitness. And the two of us run back and forth. And we do have help. Our daughter, when she's home, helps. Our grandchildren help. Our son and daughter-in-law help whenever they're around. So we're truly a family business. Mm-hmm. And I would say that my husband is not diagnosed, but he's ADHD. He has, he's dyslexic. Our daughter is definitely diagnosed with ADHD and dyslexia. So being a business owner, we've learned a lot of things, how to get systems in place so that Dale can, but Dale's one too, that he can't sit still. He just goes from morning to night, and being his own business owner, it's probably been the best move. We've been there 9 years. And up until then, he had lots of positions, always changing. This is where he is. And you can tell he loves what he does. But it's being his own boss. And then when he needs to be crazy, he can be crazy. When he needs downtime, he can have his downtime. So being a business owner has been a great thing for us. So yeah, and we do farm a little bit on the side, and he's the mayor, and I'm on every committee in town. So that's us.
They're busy.
Wow. And 3 wonderful grandchildren that we try to spend as much time as, and one of them is doing marketing for us. So if you check out Bruno Lumber, our Casey helps us market. Busy is a blessing. Yeah.
You have the little cutie.
Yeah, she comes in and says, "What grandma's got for sale today." Yeah. So that's me.
Yeah. What about you?
Actually, I've worked for government for about 36 years. Wow. And I've just retired. But I don't really have a side gig. I have more volunteer side things. And one that I'm very passionate about is our community and events within our region of about 100 kilometers. Things were very lull, and I was just getting very frustrated. So I just started my own little Facebook page and it's awesome and I love it.
Yeah.
Thought of sharing with somebody, but it's like, no, this is my thing.
Yeah.
And then I started getting some really bad stuff on my page. So now it has to come to me first in order to be approved, right?
Perfect.
So I take pride in our people
Yeah.
and our region. And I don't know, I'm just gonna take a break for now and see where the future will go. But I grew up in private business, so we'll see where we go.
I see you with the side hustle.
Something.
Mhm. Good for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll go back a little bit. So I used to like work the whole 9 to 5 job, or well, more than that, when I lived in Lloydminster. And then we decided we were gonna have our kids. So my husband and I started a roofing company. We moved here and we had our 3 children. I did not work during that time because I wasn't gonna pay daycare. We're from farming households, so we were raised by stay-at-home moms. So I got to be a stay-at-home mom. But in that, I cleaned houses. I sold Tupperware. I sold 41. I sold Epicure. So all those things because I had to stay busy. I couldn't. I needed the people interaction. And then my youngest started kindergarten. And so then I became a sub EA and librarian at their school in Munster. And then 5 years ago, I got a position, not full time. Well, it's kind of been like, well, with EAs, you are kind of just all over the map. You're never really a full time. They change all the time. And so then I am a personal, like a personal trainer. So I decided I was going to take that. So I became a personal trainer and then I was doing that. And then I was going to become a spin instructor. So then I took that course. I'm taking my group exercise course. And then this year, just with the way the schooling worked, the one EA was going to have to retire because her student graduated. And so when I talked to a librarian, we became job sharing. So now we're 50%. So that opened up my world because I was going to teach more fitness. And then just things happened. So anyways, partner and I opened a studio in town here. So that is the newest. We only opened the beginning of October.
Good for you.
Yeah. So we're just like very busy and yeah, that's kind of, there's a lot.
Yeah.
In a nutshell,
Yeah.
that sums me up. I
And
have
how do you feel now that you have this?
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very good. It was actually a dream of mine when we moved back here because we moved back here and I was 9 months. Well, I had my daughter, my second daughter, 2 weeks after we moved back home. My oldest was 1.5. And so I said, I'd like to open a gym. And my husband said, you're crazy. That's not going to happen because the gyms never make it. That's what his thought was. So 15 years ago, I said I was going to do this. And fast forward to now,
And you have.
I've done it. With his support behind me.
Which is
He
great.
supported us. Our daughters have supported us tremendously. They love doing stuff like my oldest. For instance, she was a DD at one of the functions in St. Gregor where we live, and now that's caught on. So other people are contacting her for safe rides home for functions that they do in town. So she's kind of done that. But like my daughters, they ref, they do volleyball, reffing, coaching. Yeah, so it's kind of just they just kind of do whatever.
Yeah.
Very 50-50.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's our newest adventure is
Yeah.
spin yoga and fitness. We just took over the one spot at the old Humboldt Fitness Center.
Good for
And
you.
hopefully growing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. I would love to hear from Stacy.
Sure.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
Maybe for the intern.
And then Nancy.
Yes, then we'll check on with Nancy online.
Oh. Well, I was just painting before I got here. Somebody's moving to Saskatoon for work, so she didn't rent her house, so and trying to paint while she's at work and trying to get some paint night projects done this morning because I've had people contact me to see if I'm doing paint night still, and I went, yeah. Okay, get some projects together like for staff parties and stuff for Christmas and team building and stuff like that. I started with groups of 10. I used to have a little gift store on Main Street and I sold it to Lorraine during COVID, sold the building, liquidated everything and sold the building to Lorraine. But I started doing groups of 10 there for paint nights in the store, and then I started going out to do them, and then we went down to Southeast Saskatchewan. We went like up to Waspasoo. We went all over the place, up to groups of 70 people. Wow.
So, yeah, and then during COVID, we started doing take-home kits and took some to the university in Saskatoon, and then they were shipping them across Western Canada.
Wow.
Did that like briefly, didn't continue with that. That was a lot of work for what you got out of it. So I went, no. I'm gonna take home kits. And then I just finished a finance assistant position in the office there. It was a temporary position for maternity leave. So, and I've worked for Laura, the lady that I was just working with here. I've worked with her a couple years ago, doing bookkeeping, and I am interested in doing that as well. So I just finished doing an online bookkeeping course through South Polytech at Regina. Yeah, so got my certification for that, and yeah, just dabbling in a few things, nothing nailed down.
That's okay.
Yet, but yeah, I'm trying to figure it out. I'm not. Yeah.
That's
I'm
great.
excited to do paint nights again and stuff. I didn't think I would be, but because I go too hard and then I get burnt out.
Yeah.
Like
An
so
entrepreneur at heart.
yeah, I think I had, was that last November or two? Like 70 people in a week. Like it was nuts. And so I need to learn to
Say no.
Yeah. So yeah, that's for you. Oh, thanks, Lori.
Your talk was fantastic. You touched on so many subjects, and so I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. It's nice to have I would say I'm neurodiverse, and it's much nicer than being called crazy or you gotta be nuts, because I have so many ideas, and but I've had a lot of business experiences. I've worked, and I know I am an entrepreneur because I'm a terrible employee. I didn't stay at jobs, and so recreational real estate development has been my focus. Just touching on your experience, you went through the self-employment program. I did as well, and I think that was life-changing. All of the exposure to those different disciplines, and I'm really trying to instill entrepreneurship in my children, so they all have their own little businesses and websites and e-commerce, and they're from the 14, 16, and 18-year-olds. So I can learn a lot from your pathway. So thank you for sharing, and I think networking is the key to us all getting in flow and doing what we love.
Yeah, and I think it really is transformative when you can work with youth, because I find teenagers quite annoying. I think, but because I have so many in my house, I have to just embrace it and them. But they want to do things, right? And they get into trouble if they're not busy. And so they like to earn money. Everybody's a little bit, we're all kind of motivated, some of us more than others, motivated by money. But I just think there's so many valuable things that kids can learn from having a small business. And I didn't personally grow up in 4-H. I know Jenny did. And so there are so many powerful things that kids learn through that whole program. And I wish that it was more mandatory because of the skill set that they learn, like the public speaking and even just raising the little animal and selling it and all the things, right? Like it's definitely a business venture. And maybe there's a lot of youth who are not interested in 4-H, but there's other things that they could be doing. So yeah, I agree. It's really important. What about you, Nancy? You're on mute.
Did you want to join in and tell us a little bit about yourself? Try this. She's just listening.
Okay, that's
Okay,
fine.
that's fine.
Yeah. But I mean, I think that the grand scheme, like we all have our path, and it's always nice to kind of imagine these different things, like little side hustles and things that you can do. And it's really fun, like when you can actually accomplish your goal. It's great. It's also great when you can just volunteer and you don't maybe have to generate an income from it, but just something that you're passionate about, because working and then going to retirement would be also quite challenging. especially for as long as you worked. And not only that, your whole identity would have been wrapped around your work and people at your job and things like that. So, you know, I'm thankful for you that you have something else that you can get excited about, because everybody needs a sense of purpose. And I think that if it's volunteer or your work or self-employment or your kids or art or whatever it is, a hobby, we all need something that brings us joy and that we want to do and gives us a reason to get out of bed, and not just the day-to-day grind of life, but something else added. Yeah.
And the side hustle is becoming a really popular thing. You know,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be a full-fledged, and we're seeing it lots in our office. People did something as a craft or a hobby, and all of a sudden they start thinking about, oh, I can make a little bit of money. And it's lots of times it's a service that's needed in the communities.
Yeah.
But you know, it's not a full-time gig, and you know, we're seeing lots of that.
Well, and it's, the truth is like, it's called the gig economy, right? And so the future is actually moving to a gig economy, and people are not going to want to work at an organization anymore. They're just not. They want to be self-employed. So the world is changing in terms of it's going to be contract employees and contract management. So the sooner that people can kind of wrap their head around that, they will have just so many more opportunities in their life. And the sooner that kids learn about it and they're adaptable to that, they'll fit into the future, because that is how environments are going to, like, traditional employers are going to really struggle finding employees, right? Because people want to be able to go walk their dogs and do their things and live life.
Because that's exactly right, because the government contracts our services, and a lot of the nonprofits, that's what they do. So it's not just, you know, so you have to think that they're already doing it that way too.
Yeah.
You're right, so it makes sense. Yeah.
To learn, you know, for your kids to learn a skill that they can be doing from anywhere.
I just read it.
Oh,
I'll share it with you later.
and then also, like with Sage Hill, so we do a lot of training, different webinars through the Indigenous Business Development Services. Such a long name, IBDS. Can we promote those through your
I do all
event?
the time.
Okay, great.
I don't even
Okay.
ask.
You just do, but thank you.
I just do it, right? Anything for self-empowerment.
Yeah.
Like your classes and stuff. If I see it on Facebook, I will share
Okay,
it into the event page.
Okay,
I always
perfect.
do.
Yeah, that's
Do you
great.
have a name to share yet with this teen initiative, or is it that new? That's the self-harm.
It's called Love Your Canvas.
Oh, you did say that. Okay.
Yeah, and we did incorporate it as as a social enterprise. It's all legit, ready to rock. So, and the reason why, like at first I was like, well, we'll just do this. Then I was like, had a webinar through Community Futures about social entrepreneurship. And I was like, well, why wouldn't I just register it? I mean, it doesn't have to be a huge revenue stream, but because then I can maybe ask, like, because I know the kind of grant and funding world, it can be applying for potentially for some grants.
So I don't know what a social enterprise is.
Let me
Compared
tell
to a
you.
nonprofit, I've never heard of.
Can you believe that? It's actually the most interesting form of business structure. And Canada's actually quite behind on the 8 ball with this type of business structure. So it's a not-for-profit social enterprise where you can still earn profit. You know, there's nonprofit where you can't, but you can with this. But the dollars need to be fueling a social cause or a mission. So it can be anything, environment, mental health, housing, homelessness, whatever it is, there's so many causes and social issues. So then the dollars that you make go back into the company to just keep fueling the purpose, the mission of this business. Oftentimes, a lot of social enterprises maybe are ones that also employ maybe people with disabilities. So the Sarcans are a social enterprise. So all the profits that are generated through like bringing in your bottles and stuff, that just goes to fueling like the whole system in itself, as well as paying their participants. And also, you know, just all of it. The programming that they offer, many food banks could also be, if they applied for it, to be a social enterprise. So with this, so at this point, we have outsourced the tattoos. And then we're repackaging them, and then attached with a mission and like little stories for the purpose of like, yeah, sure, you could just go and order your own tattoos online, but will you? But will you buy a package of maybe 5 that are attached to a cause that some kids are doing? You're probably more likely to do that, right? So, all these dollars, we haven't made a penny at this point, but like at some point we will. I would like to be able to pay my girls for their time if they are doing speaking events, and we'll charge for that kind of stuff. And and we're going to be at the Rorison craft fair, so we're going to sell some levels of tattoos there on November 9th. And then there's a lot of like tax benefits to having a business run like that. Even the summer student program, their income is 100% covered. So their wage is 100% covered versus 50%. So there's different things that are a benefit to this. Like I said, it was a project. My daughter is being homeschooled this year, and so I just thought, why don't we just legitimize it?
So is there a number that if somebody donates to it, is it like, what would the downside be? And it also, is there more scrutiny? Because it sounds like an entity that potentially could be misused.
Maybe you can collect donations, but you cannot provide tax receipts. You would have an entity number, but it wouldn't make a difference because you're not a charity. Right. But downsides, I'm sure there's downsides.
It's really interesting.
But
for us, yeah, just bringing awareness to it. And
For sure.
I just don't think a lot of people know about
They
that.
They don't.
Has it
So
existed for a long time?
It has, but you just did a workshop, wasn't it through community, through the, like, we have our community coach, Saskatchewan is running a series of workshops that they do for all of our community futures office, and actually Jessica heads that program, and that was one of the sessions that they just had, and I know it's not a word that we normally use in our workplaces, but they're trying to get it more known.
Right, like I know just within our region, I bet you every food bank that we have, they don't know about that, right? But could be such a great tool.
It could be 100%. Yeah. And the reason too is like, you could be a I don't want it to be a not for profit. I want to make a profit to fuel it. Right. Yeah. And it's not a business. I don't want it to be a business because I want there to be a social mission attached, and I want that to be the forefront of it. So this just made the most sense, because then you can also, if you're as a business, you can't apply for a lot of grants. You have to be a not-for-profit or a nonprofit, and you can still apply for these grants and funding as a social enterprise. So it's kind of a workaround. So, yeah. I wanted to apply for a grant through the Métis Nation. And I couldn't because I wasn't a not-for-profit. So I was planning on like developing a program that I could offer, but still I wouldn't have been able to get funding. And I was like, this is silly. Okay, how do I work around this? So, there's always a way. Yeah. So thank you.
Yes, we're coming up to the end of the hour. I don't know if anybody has any more questions. Before anybody leaves, I have to get a group picture. I'm just gonna say that. I'm maybe gonna thank Nancy for joining us online. And with that, then I will stop the video. And then if there's any more questions, we can continue from there. Might have to,
Just hit the little.
right here.